Good morning, everybody out there in Facebook land. This is the Fist Pump Guy at Bondi's Toyota. This is Facebook Live with the Fist Pump Guy. And we're going to continue this morning in our leasing versus purchasing discussion. Now, I'm trying to make these relatively short so people will actually stay engaged and stay watching. So I'm probably going to keep these somewhere between 7 to 10 minutes or so. So just a recap over what we talked about. What's up, Jeff? A recap over what we talked about Thursday and Friday, leasing versus purchasing, which one's better. I've given you a few advantages, a couple of advantages so far of why I think leasing may be a better option for a lot of people. And I basically touched on the fact that leasing is basically paying for the pre-planned usage of the vehicle that you're using. So if it's a 2-year lease or 3-year lease, you're just paying for the usage that you're going to have. What's up, guys? Just talking about leasing versus purchasing real quick. What's up, Taylor? And I touched on the fact that most people trade every 2 to 3 years on average. So if that's the case, that actually leasing may be a better option for you if you're trading that frequently, because at least that way you're getting a vehicle every 3 years versus a purchase you would keep it six years or so. What's up, Miss Deborah? And then I talked about the fact that you don't have to worry about the negative equity situation in most cases with a lease. As long as you keep it the full term of the lease, you don't have to worry about trade-in values that you typically have to worry about with, what's up, Michael? That you typically have to worry about when you're trading in a purchase for another purchase. Typically with negative equity, you keep piling it on, and a lot of times it gets to the point to where it's hard to get it covered, and also could possibly put your payment out of range of where you're trying to be. And I did talk about the fact that if you have a current vehicle now that you are purchasing, making payments on, that's not a lease, that you could take some of that, that negative equity if you got a couple grand, 2 or 3 grand, and sometimes you could roll it into a lease, and then at the end of the lease, you would be able to walk away from that. So that is a benefit those are the first 2 benefits of a lease. Now today, the primary reason people think about leasing is because of payments. Obviously, there's a lot of lease specials out there advertising lease payments that are sometimes $200 or less, maybe just a little over $200, $399 depending on the brand, depending on the vehicle, and a lot of times that's based off of prime credit, and also $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 down depending on your situation. So the idea is that a lease sometimes will give you a lower payment. All right. Now that may be the case, and that may be the truth in some cases, but not always the case. But for the most part, that's what the idea is for the lease, is to get something a little bit lower payment. So, for example, if you're going to purchase a $25,000 car, that payment may be somewhere around $350. You might be able to put a couple grand down and get that payment around $200 and get out of it in 3 years or so, whatever the case may be. So if you're looking for something a lower payment, a lease may be the right choice for you. Now, granted, all vehicles on all manufacturers don't offer a lease special, and sometimes that payment could obviously be close to the same as what a purchase would be, depending on the unit, depending on the vehicle. But even if that's the case, even if the payments were similar or very close or the same, the lease may still be a better option because, one, did you roll some negative equity into it and you want to get out of that? And 2, you get you another car in 3 years, for example, versus paying another 3 years on a purchase. So you could get a vehicle, let's just say, every 3 years, whereas on a regular purchase, you're financing for 72 months or 84 months or 75 months or whatever the case may be, and you would still have at least that term left in order to pay that vehicle off if you decide to keep it that long. So, whereas the first 2 advantages we talked about had to do with equity or negative equity in the trade, where you don't have to worry about trading so much in a lease, this one I'm talking about, which is primarily why most people want to lease, is because of payment. The payment could obviously be the same as a regular purchase, or maybe even more, depending on your situation. Whether if you're rolling too much negative into it, the payment could be higher than an advertised lease special, or if you're not putting down the money that it requires to get to that payment, sometimes that can affect it as well. But like I said, even if the payments are close or similar between a purchase and a lease, I think that sometimes leasing is still a better option, because in 3 years, 2 years, whatever your lease term is, you'd be able to walk away from that. So if you're rolling negative equity, you can still walk away from it in 2 or 3 years, even if the payment's the same. So I always like to advise people that sometimes, even if the payment's close or the same as a purchase, that leasing may be an option for you anyway, because you can still get you a new car in 3 years. And if you, like I said, if you're rolling negative equity, you could put that in there as well. And there's some other advantages, and I'll cover those as we go through the week. So keep in mind, negative equity has something to do with the payment. If you're rolling from a trade, if you're trading into a lease, sometimes that'll affect the payment. How much money down that you're putting can affect your payment as far as the lease payment goes. So even though there's a lease payment advertised at, say, $199, for example, money down gets you there most of the time, whether it's $2 or $3 grand down, whatever the average down payment would be to get that payment, and also negative equity. But also keep in mind, credit tiering sometimes will affect that lease payment as well. But even all that put together, even all that said, a lot of times, like I said before, even if the payment's the same, you're going to be more beneficial going with a lease, because you're still able to get out of that negative equity. You can build credit up in 3 years, and you don't have to worry about continuing to pay on another vehicle that maybe you don't want or you're tired of over that amount of time. All right, that's all I got today. The third advantage, possibly a lower payment. Not always not always exact on that, but even if the payment was the same, you would still be able to get out of that car in 3 years and get you something new. So that's just another advantage for leasing over purchasing. Tomorrow I'm going to touch on one more, and then probably Wednesday and Thursday I can finish up. I got a couple more that I'm going to touch on as far as why leasing is a good option for a lot of people. It may be a good option for you if you're in the market around this area and you want to look out, reach out to me and see what leasing how it may benefit you. Give me a call, 334-447-0585. I'm the fist pump guy over here at Bondi's Toyota, selling cars the right way, because it's the only way I know. Follow the Fist Pump Enterprise.